Welcome to the Week 4 Go-To session. This is the fourth and final session that we're hosting this month, so thank you all for attending. Welcome. Hard to believe, but we're at the end of the class. That's how things work here at Full Sail. It is a sprint, not a marathon. The second that the month begins, it feels like it's already over. Let's see, are there any important things to update you on? I'm grading essays. And unlike previous weeks, I'm not going to make the false promise. I mean, I am working as hard as I can to get them done. But the last two assignments, I fell behind. But I really do want to play catch up on this one, okay? What else did I want to say about the essays? It flew out of my head. But I'm in the midst of grading them, okay? And I'm going to try to, if I can, bang them out. Here's my issue. I write a lot, right? You guys have read the feedback. I tend to say quite a bit, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time. So I'm going to see if I can keep my comments on the brief side. For example, if someone is still struggling with thesis, I may just say, watch the week 1 lecture or read my previous feedback. Because I try hard to kind of reteach, and every time in the comments I end up reteaching the entire lecture material, and maybe I should do a little bit less of that to speed things up. What we have here on the page, by the way, I'm also recovering from illness. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. I'm getting over a terrible cough, a really bad cold. That's another reason why if we can keep today's session, this usually lasts, 35, 40 minutes. So, but why? Because we're in the final week. So let's take a look at the final week. We only have a couple things to concentrate on. The usual stuff. There is your final journal response. And most people are doing great. But I'm still reminding a few people that think of this as an informal quiz. Okay? That you have to prove to me that you're watching the lectures and that you're doing the readings. If you can do that, I'm more than happy to slap an A on your effort. Okay? Because that's what I want to see. I just want to walk away and think, yep, he or she, they did the readings, they watched the lecture. So make sure that you prove that to me beyond a shadow of a doubt. There is no McGraw-Hill Achieve module for this week. They exist for the first 3 weeks, but not week 4. Okay? So that will lighten your workload a little bit. So what are the major activities? One is peer review. Peer review has already opened. Okay? It's already active. But because the due date on the essay was extended till last night, Tuesday at midnight, probably there might not have been much action until now. We are going to briefly look at the peer review activity in turnitin.com. Let me check something. I want to make sure I have the date set correctly. Let me go back for a second. Because last week it was set to a weird date. Actually, I have to go in here anyway. End peer review, the 23rd. What day is today? The 21st. Okay, so Friday. It ends on Friday. And I'll try to remember to send out an announcement about this, because every month there are a handful of students who forget about peer review. And let me just say it now. Now, again, I'll try to remember to say this in an announcement. But peer review is the one activity I cannot extend. Not because I'm the mean instructor and I'm not willing to. Like, literally, I cannot extend peer review. Turnitin.com does not let me go in. Once it's active, I can't go in. See, here's the peer review end date. If I try to change this and say, let me open it up a few days later to allow more people to finish it, I can't. I'm going to get an error message, okay? So you have until Friday at midnight. By the way, I've changed that as well. I think the end date is supposed to be earlier than that. I have it go all the way through Friday. So, today's already Wednesday. So figure you have today, tomorrow, Friday to get peer review done. Let's see. I'm trying to read the comments in the chat as well. Okay. Actually, I don't know whether to stay here with peer review or to go back. Actually, let's go to the keynote thing. Did I cover everything I wanted to say? Just real quickly. Okay, so peer review, that's a big guy. It's worth 10% of your grade. So, the people forget to do it. That's a hard 10% to lose. And then a revision. Okay, you're going to get feedback in your essay and you're going to revise it in theory for Sunday. That's why I want to get these essays graded today and overnight, if possible, because then you'll have 4 full days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to work on revision. And we'll talk about that in a moment. There is a reflection essay that you have to write. And as you can see, it's worth 0%. And so that might be tempting, like, screw it, I don't have to do it. It's not worth anything. It actually is, because there's a penalty if you don't do it. But it's a low stakes assignment, okay? So we're going to cover basically these 3 guys in today's session. So let me go to my keynote thingy. So here we go. Welcome to week 4, where the main activity is, yes, the revision of your essay, reflection on your progress. And it should also say peer review. Peer review is a pretty important thing. Here's that same image we've been seeing every week, right? The writing process. So we're here, okay? We're in the final little stretch. You're going to get feedback, not just from me, but from 2 of your classmates. And then you're going to revise accordingly. Okay, that's the major activity. Okay, due in theory Sunday night, though. Listen, you know how I am with extensions. If for some reason you need extra time, just let me know. I'm fine with people who need extra time beyond Sunday. But in theory, yeah, Sunday is the due date for the revision, based on my feedback and quite possibly the feedback of your peers as well. Most people know what revision means, but if you look at the word revise, okay, or even the fuller word revision, right, it's got that word vision in it, or a version of the word vision, as in revise here. And of course, the prefix here, re, means to do again. So it means to see things again. Most of you know this. You know what revision means. It means to go back to something and work on it some more. Revision is common in just about everything. I don't know of any songwriter who just bangs it out all at once and done. I don't know of a poet who writes a poem in one shot and says done. Okay, or a sculpture or a painting, right? Most people have to go back to the work and fiddle with it, improve it. There might be quite a bit to do, or there might be not so much to do. So, yeah, the main task, and it's worth 15% of your grade, by the way, the revision assignment. And I will talk in a little bit about pitfalls, things to be careful of, because if the assignment is worth that much, it's the revision assignment is the assignment worth the most points in the course. So, yeah, there's an expectation that some work will be done. The reflection, we'll go into the reflection activity later as well. But essentially, it's going to ask you questions about your journey as a writer this month. What have you accomplished? What barriers did you encounter and overcome? Stuff like that, okay? And actually, when we do look at the revision activity, there are a series of about, I think, 6 prompts that you have to answer. You do so in essay form, so you don't literally just copy and paste. Here's the question, here's my answer. Here's the question, here's my answer. No, rather you use the prompts to answer the prompts, but to do so in essay form, right? So you're writing in sentences, paragraphs. But it is a low stakes assignment because I'm not grading it the way I would grade an essay. Mostly I grade on effort and if you're answering the questions. If you do, great. But let's talk about the revision first. Here's kind of a snapshot of the basic instructions. And yeah, revision is basically what it sounds like, okay? You are going to make changes to your original draft. There are some suggestions here about making a copy. You can do that or not, meaning make sure that you keep your original essay in its original form. Because if you start making changes to that original version and something happens to it, then you're screwed, right? Because the whole file is lost. But if you have that original file still available and healthy, you can always come back to it again. But basically, yeah, you're going to revise and edit your essay in APA style. And you're going to begin by addressing global issues. Global issues, that's not like world hunger or world poverty. Okay, not those sorts of global issues. Global issues means big picture issues. Okay, mentioned in my feedback, but through peer review, you might get some of these from your classmates as well. And you may need to do additional research. You might need to add or remove content. You might need to reorganize your ideas. Okay, so big picture things. issues of thesis, content, organization. Next, you'll consider whether or not your peers' feedback will help you. Okay, all of you will receive 2 papers just distributed to you randomly from 2 classmates. I should note that I'm teaching 3 sections this month, and I just think it's easier to create one turnitin.com section because you're all taking the exact same course. Several of you here, I don't know how many of you look at the roster and recognize each other's names, but if you do, you might look at the people who are in the room with us tonight and think, oh, wait a second, I don't know this person. That's probably because they're in another section, but you're all taking the exact same class. For that reason, because you're lumped into one giant turnitin.com section, yeah, you might receive papers from people who are not technically in your class, but it doesn't matter. They're writing the exact same paper. They're attending the exact same go-to sessions like the one tonight. Okay, so even though you don't recognize the person's name, it is no limitation. So yeah, you'll consider the feedback from your peers. And finally, you'll, yes, proofread. Make sure that your paper is in the strongest form it can possibly be. I've been telling people, make sure that you use grammar check and spell check, those 2 simple tools that are provided for you through Microsoft Word. It won't correct everything, but it will catch a lot of things, okay? Because even though I do not expect students to be expert writers, we all make mistakes. Even I send things out into the world with a mistake. I had a student just this month who noticed that, I forget what he said to me in a message, but I wrote back, oh, that's great to hear. But I wrote it H-E-R-E. Now, you can either reach 2 conclusions. You can think that, wow, David's a dummy. He's teaching English class and doesn't know the difference between here, H-E-A-R, and here, H-E-R-E. Or you just accept the fact that, yeah, I had a brain freeze. Or sometimes your brain is thinking something else that is thinking about the word here, H-E-R-E, but you end up typing that instead of the correct. Anyway, we all make mistakes. I understand that. But when I see like consistent errors throughout the entire piece, words constantly misspelled, sure, maybe it occurs to me, well, maybe the person's not great at spelling. But that's not really an excuse, because if you would have used spell check would have caught a lot of that. Proofread it using your own eyes and your own brain, but run it through grammar check and spell check, okay? Everybody knows how to do that, right? Using Microsoft Word. You just go to the top menu. I think it's under Tools, and you'll see grammar and spelling. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in detail about revision, the process of it. By the way, I should have shown these earlier for other assignments because I don't know how many times students actually look at them, but every assignment has a rubric like this, so you can see exactly how you're being graded. Okay, thesis, content. I usually write content. When it says development, it's really an issue of content. Organization, APA and research, and then grammar mechanics. Okay, and if you've looked at the rubric, yeah, there's supposed to be an automatic 5-point deduction for any time people get a little bit too lazy. I sometimes call these text speak errors because they're so common in texting and social media posts. For example, not capitalizing the beginning of a sentence, or not capitalizing people's names, or not putting an apostrophe in obvious contractions, or typing lowercase I instead of capital I. Usually I'll ignore 1 slip, but if I start seeing 2, 3, 4 slips, then yeah, I have to be the mean instructor and start taking off points. Note 2 for revision. Lack of substantial improvement to the quality of your work in the revision will result in a loss of 20 points from the assignment grade. In other words, if you just hand in the same file again, okay, I'll slap the same grade that you received for the essay, whether it was an A or a B or a C or lower, and then deduct 20 points, because the assignment is not to upload a file, right? To take your essay and just hand it in again. Lack of substantial improvement also means, okay, you tinkered around a little bit. You fixed a couple spelling errors, you changed some commas, but there are like big picture things that also needed attention and they didn't receive attention. So yeah, be careful, because if it's either the exact same file or mostly the same file, that could result in a loss of points. Now, I do get the question sometime, Like, what if you really did a terrific job on the essay draft, right? You received a high score. Do I have to significantly revise? No. If your paper really was in amazing shape, you might have only small things to fix, tiny things to fix. And that's a great position to be in. Okay. But the vast majority of people will have to do a bit more than that. Uh, it's kind of like, I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but some people have very little to do. Some people have quite a lot. Various people will be somewhere in between. Okay, so let's talk about the revising stages. I've used some of this language already. But yeah, global issues, okay? Another way to rephrase this is big picture issues. This is what needs immediate attention. It makes no sense to start fixing spelling errors or tinkering around with commas if, for example, entire paragraphs need to be rewritten. Or if the paper doesn't have a thesis. And because it doesn't have a thesis, it sort of just wanders all over the place. Those things need to be addressed first. Okay? It makes no sense to fix individual sentences if those individual sentences may not even remain. So for this reason, big picture issues or global issues, so thesis, content, organization, those you start with first. And I should say too, for peer review, it's important that you focus on big pictures as well. So when you get those two papers distributed to you automatically for the peer review task, try to think first while you're reading that classmate's paper, even if they're not in your section. If you notice big picture things or are attuned to noticing those kind of global issues, those big picture issues, that's what your classmate needs to hear. Okay? Pointing out a single spelling error, sure, that the student might correct that one spelling error, but still, huge swaths of the paper perhaps need attention. Okay, so and by the way, I do this too, right? If you think of my feedback that I've given you, how much do I write in the grammar and mechanics section? Not much, right? Usually I say see paper, where I've usually marked up a single paragraph or two to give the writer an idea what sorts of issues are popping up. But no, most of my attention goes to thesis, content, organization, and not so much for APA and grammar. And actually, here's a little visual, which not only reminds us of what these global issues are, but is a quick recap of what your essay is supposed to do, right? We've talked about it this all month, so I'll just kind of breeze through this. This little capsule at the top is the introduction paragraph, where ideally you're capturing the reader's attention in an opening line. The introduction ends with your thesis statements, right, which is where you list your 3 analysis points, right? The McDonald's ad uses A, B, and C, and then that sets up the structure for the rest of your paper, because those 3 items listed in your thesis become the topics for your 3 body paragraphs. If your thesis promises a discussion of A, B, and C, you'll have 1 body paragraph on A, 1 paragraph on B, 1 paragraph on C. Okay, we talked about this in week 2. And then your paragraph should ideally begin with a topic sentence, which is kind of like the thesis for that individual paragraph. Okay, and I'll just move on because we talked about this before. And then a conclusion paragraph. This is a nice visual representation of what the paper looks like. Introduction, conclusion, and then in between your 3 body paragraphs. Okay, and the introduction and conclusion kind of mirror one another somewhat, or echo maybe is a better word, because they do similar things, though somewhat in reverse. So the conclusion often restates the thesis, maybe not in the very first sentence, but closer to the beginning of the conclusion. And then you find your kind of natural way to bring things to a close. But anyway, there's a reminder of the kind of 5-paragraph structure that we're aiming for in this paper. Right, there we go. Introduction, body, conclusion. By the way, in the real world, of course, not everything is limited to 5-paragraph essays. In fact, you rarely see 5-paragraph essays in the real world. But I still think there's importance in teaching this stuff, because if we think, again, in terms of big picture, all writing typically has some sort of introduction and beginning. All writing typically has some sort of conclusion or ending. And in between, you'll have separate paragraphs. Maybe not exactly 3, maybe there are 5, maybe there are 10, maybe it's a super long paper and it has, 20 body paragraphs. But still, each of those paragraphs will have a single focus, right? A single topic, a single point. So no, it's not that writing is this automatic, but still, these basic organization principles are common to all writing. That's what I want people to remember because you will have to do writing in other Full Sail classes. And if you can kind of remember these basics, you should be fine. So what we just talked about, those global issues, yeah, those are issues of true revision. Looking at the paper again, seeing things again. But another aspect of revision is the smaller stuff. And these are matters more of editing more than true revision. And so we call these local issues. These are these smaller picture issues. And yeah, this is all the smaller stuff. So grammar, spelling, sentence structure, proofreading. When I say smaller stuff, I don't mean unimportant. I just mean that they come second, okay? First, attention needs to go to the big stuff, because again, if there are serious issues with thesis, content, or organization, those need to be addressed, and then we move on to the smaller stuff. But yeah, when I say smaller stuff, I do not mean unimportant. Obviously, if a paper is very difficult to read because every sentence contains errors or every sentence is awkwardly worded, that can seriously interfere with the reader's ability to read the piece cleanly. And yeah, that can be, in some cases, severe enough that it is a major issue. But still, in general, we consider these things local issues. When you read over your paper, again, I recommend using grammar check, spell check. It's also important to use your own eyes, your own brain. And if you wish to, a popular editing technique is called the last to first method. This means that you literally read your paper backwards. Okay, so you read the last sentence in your paper, and then the one before that, and so on. And what this does is it breaks up when you read a paper in order from first sentence to final sentence, your eyes will actually glaze over things. For example, there could be a missing word and you just don't see it. It could be a small word like of or the, and yet you don't see it because your brain automatically fills in the word. Sometimes the reader, like me, might miss it because, yeah, your brain is actually trained to, you actually don't read every word that you see on the page, because some expressions, some word pairs are so common that, yeah, your brain already anticipates what's coming. And so you break that up if you read things backwards, okay, because it forces your brain to read things out of order. And doing so will help you spot obvious mistakes. It might sound a little bit tedious, but give it a try if you feel like it. Another method, which we don't have featured in the slide here, is to read it out loud. If you read it out loud, you are kind of forced to look at every word. Also, it helps you spot awkwardness, because if you read your paper out loud and you stumble badly over one of your sentences, that's a huge clue that it probably needs to be rewritten, because you shouldn't be stumbling over your own sentences. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a nice reminder too. It's tough to do in a class like this where everything moves so fast, but if you do have the luxury of being able to step away from something and come back to it, that's great. Okay. Because I know I've written so many papers in my life that, yes, it can all start seeming like mush if you stare at the screen too long. And if you can just get away from the computer for a couple hours, even better, overnight, and come to it the next day, you'll see things clearly. It won't look like gibberish anymore. Plus, much needed breaks are always important. This is a little bit late, though there's still some time on the schedule. If you need more help, there is the Full Sail Writing Center. You do need 24 hours notice. So, for example, you could not get an appointment for tonight, but you could get one for tomorrow or for Friday. And you just have to email writingcenter@fullsail.com, which I'm typing into the chat right now. Okay. And if you happen to be Orlando and you're a campus student, you can come right into the building here and meet with someone live. A lot of our students are online, and you can meet with a tutor using the exact same technology we're using right now, GoToTraining, okay, for a one-on-one session. dealing with it, you can discuss grammar, you can discuss APA, you can discuss coming up with ideas. But yeah, the Full Sail Writing Center is here to help. Okay. This week. Okay, yeah, this is just some of these slides have changed, so I have to remind myself what they say. Yeah, okay, yeah, revision takes time, although you don't get much of it. That's my only concern about how fast this class moves. Don't have much time. I think I told you in week 1, right? So I created some materials. Like I went through the process of writing ad analysis because I wanted to see what it was like, and I thought I would bang out. We looked at the GPAD in week 1, and I figured I know what I want to say, and it'd take me maybe an hour or two to write it. It took me, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 hours over the course of 2 days to fully finish my Jeep essay, and that includes research. So yeah, if you would think that the instructor should be able to sit down and in an hour or so just write a terrific essay. No, it took time. So yeah, I understand that for students as well. When you have 4 days turnaround to hand something in, the next writing assignment, that's not easy to do, especially if you're juggling family, job responsibilities, other things like that. Because yeah, not just revision takes time, writing takes time. Okay, to do it well. But still, try the best that you can. Okay, that's true for all assignments. In theory, it's due Sunday at midnight. Again, if you need time past that, that's fine. Some people won't want to do that because obviously new classes start next week. But if you do need time past Sunday, just let me know. Okay, and when it says remember you have a portfolio activity, that's referring to that reflection essay. And actually, let's get away for just 1 second. Let me show you the reflection. For some reason, there we go. I couldn't exit. Okay, so let's go into the reflection essay. Excuse me. Okay, as usual, the instructions contain lots of words, but essentially you need to scroll down to here, this bullet list of points. Okay, so what do you expect from English? Did the class meet your expectation? How confident were you in your writing abilities at the beginning? How do you feel now? How did your essay change over the course of the month? How well do you think you've met the requirements in the class? Is there anything that you're proud of, etc.? In other words, they're questions that focus on you as a writer and your journey. Please note that this is not the place to complain about the class. You get a separate activity to do that. So yeah, you get a special evaluation activity where you can complain. I shouldn't say complain because I shouldn't be so negative. You can say wonderful things about the class or yeah, issues of concern in that separate activity. I believe students are emailed a link where they can respond to the course. This is much more focused on you, okay, and your progress in the class. And again, you're not just taking these questions, copying them, and then writing a sentence in response. No, use these prompts to write an actual essay. Okay, and yeah, it's somewhat informal. You're still expected to write to the best of your ability. So don't write it in slang. Don't write it in all lowercase. Follow the normal conventions of writing, but it is not being graded the way that, for example, I'm grading your essays. So don't worry about that. Okay. Basically, if you take these prompts, answer them in paragraph form. Some people write, well, I don't think you could write a full paragraph for each of these, but yeah, I don't know. Handle 2 of these in a single paragraph. Handle another 2 in another paragraph. Yeah, do it however you want. Maybe you'll have 3 total paragraphs. Maybe you'll have 5. I don't know. But as long as you're answering these prompts in paragraph or essay form and are doing so sincerely and thoughtfully, you'll be fine. Okay, it's basically pass-fail. You do it, you pass. You don't do it, yeah, there's a 20-point penalty from the professionalism grade. Okay, so even though it's worth only 0%. So you would think, like I said at the beginning of the lecture, that it wouldn't hurt you if you don't do it. There is a 20-point penalty, so be careful for not doing it. Oh, Terry's saying something about she was moving while the class was session. Yeah, Terry, most of our students have lots of responsibilities that they're juggling. Lots of challenges, lots of obstacles. Most of our students are, especially the online students, they're married, they have children, they have a job, sometimes two jobs. And yeah, on top of all that, they also have to be students. So believe me, I am aware of this. I am aware of how tough it is. I do sympathize. But know that you're not alone. Okay. Let's see. I think I was near the end of the keynote thing. Okay, reflection, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I want to show peer review real quickly. Yeah, for the reflection, use APA. But by APA, it's not research driven, so you don't have to. There will be no citations. There will be no references. And actually, if you followed APA for the essay, you can easily just convert it for the reflection essay. Right? You can just repurpose your cover page. You could even use the exact format that you use. Remember, getting it double spaced in the proper font, and just again repurpose it for the reflection. So yeah, make it look pretty. In other words, by pretty means that you follow the basic APA conventions. Again, in terms of spacing and all that. Okay, so let's take a look at peer review. Like I said, peer review is handled through turnitin.com. And ultimately, these are the questions you're going to answer. In the past, we used to have peer review be completely student generated. So a student would receive 2 papers or be assigned 2 papers and essentially have to completely create their own response. Now we have prompts and specific questions for you to answer. This is great because, yeah, when it was completely open to students, sometimes we get fantastic peer critiques and sometimes not so fantastic peer critiques. Here, though, you are receiving so much guidance that I can promise you that if you're answering each of these questions, again, specifically and thoughtfully, you'll do fine. So they're broken down into categories because we're using something called the RISE model. So RISE stands for reflect, inquire, suggest, elevate. But basically, you'll first answer this prompt. And note that there is a minimum answer length of 100 words. And when you're in the actual peer review activity, you'll have a little bar at the top that tells you how much progress you're making towards 100 words. Do I sit there and count your words? Not usually, but I can tell when a response is very short. For instance, all these prompts have multiple questions. So the first one says, what is the thesis statement as you see it? Actually, it begins with which advertisement was chosen. That's pretty easy, right? So if your classmate chose a McDonald's ad, first day, you'll say, this student chose McDonald's first day. What is the thesis statement as you see it? What are the main points? Meaning, what are those 3 analysis points, okay? Did the writer use a hook? To broaden that, the opening sentence. Does the opening sentence do a good job as an opening sentence for the essay? Given that this should be an intelligent professional audience, the general reader, how is the language? Is it appropriate or is it too casual? Okay, so yeah, there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to answer. You won't have any trouble reaching the 100 words. 100 words sounds like it's a lot, but it's not. Okay, if I were to take and copy and paste all these words here, that's probably 70 words right there. So yeah, 100 words is not as long as you think. And then so on. I'm not going to read all the questions out loud, but as you can see, each prompt has 4 or 5 questions. Well, the later ones are a little bit shorter. Like here, make 2 direct suggestions for how your class might improve. And explain the potential benefits of those suggestions. In other words, just to answer these questions specifically, I suggest when you get the papers, again, you're going to get 2 papers randomly distributed to you. Read both papers with care. You'll work on them one at a time, but read the paper carefully. Read it again if you need to, because what you're going to need to do is answer these questions specifically. I think there are 2 ways in which I grade this. 1, are you answering these questions? And 2, how well are you answering these questions, right? If they're being answered so generally that your response almost could apply to any paper, that's not so hot. And actually, to answer these questions well, you should be very specific. And that means you'll probably have to go back to the essay and look at it, okay? to remember things or to remind yourself about what that paragraph is about that you were, for example, concerned about. Okay. Uh, so that's one thing that's being graded. Are you answering the questions thoroughly, and how concretely, how specifically? I should come away with the sense that, yes, you've read the paper and you've thought about it, and you're responding to the best of your ability, trying to give that person solid advice. If you do that, great. The other thing that could affect the grading situation is because this is done entirely online. Okay, so this is handled through turnitin.com. For some reason, and I know the answer, because it occurs entirely online, students sometimes slip into bad habits. What do I mean by bad habits? Uh, Not capitalizing the first letter in the word that begins a new sentence. Okay, so it's all lowercase, or if not all lowercase, lowercase is popping up more often than just once or twice. Or sentences don't end with punctuation, or sentences are oddly smashed together, right? So everything looks crammed together. And then here's my theory, and you can tell me if you think I'm spot on with this or like way off. Uh, because when you're typing online, it's easy to get casual because so often you don't really pay attention to these things when you're writing a Facebook update or status update, or you're texting or tweeting, right? You don't really care if sentences look smashed together. You don't worry if you didn't begin a new sentence with initial capitalization. That's not this. Okay, so don't be fooled that just because peer review is taking place online, that means that you can slip into too casual a style, or that you can just make errors left and right. No, every piece of writing for this class needs to aim for the highest professionalism possible. That means anything, not just the major writing assignments, the worksheet, the outline, the essay. No, also this peer review task. Also the journal assignments every week. A message to the instructor should also be written with professionalism in mind. So be careful, because I really do see this a lot. And this should be an easy assignment, honestly, because again, if you're answering these questions specifically and thoughtfully, you should be getting an A. And most points get taken off, like I said, when things aren't very specific and thoughtful, but more so when I start seeing lots of errors. Again, I'll ignore a single error because we all make mistakes. Two errors, I might raise an eyebrow. But when I see, again, repeatedly, like lowercase I, right? So I'm going to type it in the chat. This instead of this. But I see that lowercase I repeatedly, half a dozen times. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. And that's when I get a little bit angry. I mean, not personally angry, but you know what I mean. That's where I say, wait a second, this person just banged this out. This person just sat down, cranked it out. And so, yeah, proofread your work. I know it's an extra step, but if you want to type out your responses first and then run them through grammar, spell check through Microsoft Word, and then paste them into Turnitin.com, you can do that. Do whatever you want, but make sure that it's as clean as possible, okay? But really, that's it. Peer review is really that simple. You'll get 2 essays distributed to you. Make sure that you're answering these prompts thoroughly. Okay, and you have until Friday at midnight to complete this. So please find some time between now and then to do so. Okay, questions, comments, concerns, anything about this final week and what's expected, or anything at all regarding the class as a whole. And while I'm waiting for that, I should say, as usual, if you are comfortable with what we've gone over and you don't have questions, you are free to go enjoy the rest of your evening. I thank you so much for attending and attending all month. And if you have any questions that occur to you later, just shoot me a message through the FSO platform. Emily, are you going to stick around after the room is cleared for you and I to talk? Emily requested some one-on-one time, so she's going to stick around. So, but first, do other people have questions? Jill says, if I do need expanded time on, let's say, the revision or reflection, when is the best time to say that? Maybe Friday? Yeah, that's fine. That would be ideal. Only because sometimes I don't check as much over the weekend. But yeah, I'm pretty casual with that. Plus, because I fell behind with grading, I sort of have to be flexible. Warren, okay, yeah. I hope when you may say email, you mean a message to FSO. Because I feel bad, but I should be checking email like every day. But some days I don't because so many students, like 99% of them, use the message function in FSO platform because the FSO, right? Because it's so convenient. And so I feel bad when sometimes I miss an email that comes through because I get so surprised, like, oh wow, an actual email. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I think the FSO message system is faster, simpler. I assume that instructors and students alike visit it every day, use it every day. Um, Plus, even though I do like email, I guess for younger students, it's kind of old school, right? Don't students look at email as something like archaic? Everybody texts, everybody uses, I don't know, some other way to communicate other than email. It's only old dinosaurs like me who still use it. And even I've gotten away from it. Look what I just said. I don't check it every day anymore. Snapchat. Yeah, I don't get Snapchat. My daughter uses it. I don't get it. I understand you take photos and they disappear, but it's also, I guess, a way to communicate. But yeah, I have no idea. I don't use any of this stuff. And I'm not a Luddite. I used to think that I was into technology, but as soon as everything went mobile, yeah, that's when I officially became one of those old get off my lawn. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get Twitter. I don't get any of it. Uh, Warren is having issues uploading assignments. Uploading to turn it in? Because that might be an issue either specific to your computer or specific to turnitin.com on FSO. Okay, but I'm confused. What do you need to upload on FSO? Because unless you were like, I don't know, trying to send me something to look at or something, I don't think we have any activities that require uploads to FSO, right? I mean, even the journal assignment, you're supposed to type right into the box that appears. I have some students who send me it in a document, and that's fine. But otherwise, unless I'm wrong, I'm trying to think, is there anything on FSO that I'm forgetting about? But yeah, like if you send me a message or something and wanted to attach a document, I guess that could be an issue. I mean, Warren, if you're having problems, that's the time to call FSO support at 877-437-6349. Okay, FSO. Can't type. There we go. It's broken up. This is a brand new laptop pretty much, but I don't like the keyboard. It's like really thin, and I just make so many mistakes. Um, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because it looks like not too many people have questions, okay? So for the people who are watching, they're probably bored out of their skulls right now, so I apologize. I'm going to stop the recording now.